No, no.
No, it's solo. Vanilla cone. Yeah.
I know. It's about time. Hey, Tom. Real close.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Now 43.
Young man.
Oh,
43.
33. 44 in a month. Been a commissioner?
Yeah.
This is, what is this year? 11 or 12, since 2011. No, it was 11, my first year. What's that? 2011 was my first year. It was a lot different back then, I'll tell you what.
Yes, yes.
That's scary. But is there a Democrat? I don't know. I think it's Jerry Moore. Is John Sherrill District 1?
Yes.
But Jerry Moore is running as unaffiliated.
Independent. Yes, indeed.
So there'll be a lot more people here.
Is everybody here? Buzz is not here. There we go. It is 7 o'clock. Welcome. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Town Board of Commissioners of Highlands, North Carolina for May 19th. The first thing that we always do is, of course, have a moment of silence and Pledge of Allegiance. So will you please join me in a moment of silence? Thank you. Now, will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda will be the public comment period. Let me just preface my a comment about this period. I know that there will be some folks that would like to respond to the item on the agenda, the Unified Development Ordinance changes concerning STRs. Since this is a public comment period, everyone has the option to decide what they would like to present and discuss to the board. I would ask that you hold your comments to 3 minutes. And also, we've had a public hearing, we've had public comment concerning this issue of STRs. If at all possible, we would hope that you would focus your comments on short-term rentals tonight related to the proposed amendments that are contained in the agenda packet. So with that being said, do we have anyone who would like to make a public comment tonight? Just come forward.
Hello. My name's Christy Jones Favali, a member of Save Highlands, a grassroots group of neighbors and homeowners who wish to preserve the lawful use of property for short-term rentals here in Highlands. We've carefully studied the proposed amendments. For the sake of time, I'll stick to our 2 major concerns. Section 4.7.10. Despite its clever naming, is still in fact an impermissible registration requirement according to the law of the state of North Carolina and the North Carolina Vacation Rental Act. By requiring property owners to provide the address, name, contact information of the owner, manager, tax information, and a septic certificate, the town is plainly instituting a system to track short-term rentals. Although the town describes this as a short-term rental zoning compliance permit, the information required to obtain this permit has absolutely nothing to do with zoning compliance. Next is section 6.5.18 regarding vested rights and nonconformities. This section cannot apply retrospectively to property owners who have long-standing short-term rentals. The town cannot lawfully require valid non-conforming short-term rentals to comply with new standards that diminish or eliminate their established property rights. This in its entirety is contrary to the law on valid non-conforming use and vested rights. In conclusion, while the ordinance amendments are problematic for many reasons, the foregoing provisions are especially concerning. By proposing these ordinance amendments, the town has blatantly disregarded the recommendations of the planning board and the reasonable legal advice of at least 2 reputable land use attorneys. The amendments also disregard the demonstrated will of those citizens and residents who spoke overwhelmingly in favor of short-term rentals at the board's February 17th meeting. Despite the dozens of people who voiced their support of the free use of short-term rentals and the notable few who voiced their opposition, the town is choosing to adopt regulations that will drastically and detrimentally hinder short-term rentals in Highlands. And the town is making this choice without giving proper notice to the public and providing a reasonable time for our neighbors to meaningfully consider the amendments and voice their comments. Save Highlands has always sought to compromise with the town and with the Highlands Neighborhood Coalition. Had the town provided more advance notice of the proposed amendments, Save Highlands might have successfully negotiated with the town to reach a resolution that all parties could live with. But the town has short-circuited the process and left Save Highlands with no choice but to continue fighting through the legal justice system. Simply put, we know what our legal rights are, and all we've ever asked is for an ordinance that's within the confines of the law, which this certainly is not. It is my sincere hope that the town makes a reasonable decision here tonight against these invalid, overreaching ordinance amendments. But if not, Save Highlands will have no other option but to remain steadfast in challenging any and all ordinance amendments that improperly infringe upon individual property rights. Thank you for your time and for your consideration.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment?
Good evening, everyone. Back. And I just want to say, I think the town, in some respects, has definitely moved in the right direction with the ordinance, but I do have some significant concerns. If you recall back at our last public comment period, I really emphasized having an enforceable ordinance if we're trying to deal with short-term rentals and problematic short-term rentals. And that was looking at occupancy, which this ordinance does, parking,
noise, and trash, which this ordinance does. What concerns me, and I know you've had attorneys look at this, and I've read the case law from Schroeder versus the city of Wilmington, and I see how you can reach the conclusion that you've reached in this document. There's definitely some leadway, and the court said that, how they separated out the two arguments that was brought. But I would say that the concern is, I would have to agree with the last speaker that a zoning compliance permit is in essence a registration requirement. It's not the worst thing in the world, but I'm not sure it meets the law, but the attorneys must have told you that it does meet the law. So I'll rely on you for that. It appears that short-term rentals are singled out compared to long-term rentals. And North Carolina General Assembly in their original legislation specifically said you can't separate the two, but they did not do that in their subsequent legislation that was in 2017. So I do think that's a concern because the courts haven't looked at, should you have the same rules for short-term rentals that you do for long-term rentals? And some of those rules that are concerning to me is one, the septic inspection. So you're going to have a septic inspection for short-term rentals, and you're going to have a sewage connection for short-term rentals, but you're not going to have the same for a long-term rental. Or what about a single-family home? People live in their single-family home for 365 days. Don't they have the possibility of having a bad septic system or a bad connection to the sewer system? So you're clearly singling out short-term rentals, which most of them are not occupied to capacity 365 days of the year. And I would argue, unless you have some evidence that I'm not aware of, they don't use any more sewer or septic than a business on Main Street or a single-family home where 6 people live in that home, for the most part, 365 days out of the year. So that's concerning, and it's an additional burden put on the short-term renter. Item number 8, the rental agreement. So this is under the current standards, most people rent through Airbnb or VRBO. So adding an addendum to the lease to include the ordinance provisions, a lease agreement is between the landlord and the tenant. The ordinance is something the town has the authority to create and the authority to enforce. So I don't think short-term rental owners would have any problem giving that ordinance provisions to their tenants. But how it works with Airbnb and VRBO or renting, you don't typically meet the folks that are renting your home. Everything's done online. You can put stuff in there for them to read and look at. It's not realistic that you're going to have them sign an additional lease addendum agreement. So I have no problem giving them that information, but putting it in the lease agreement, I don't know if the town has the authority to tell. Do you tell the businesses on Main Street how to write their lease agreements? I don't think you do. Item number 2, short-term rentals. Is it enforceable with how many people are related within the home? How's that going to work? Are you going to send law enforcement out there to determine if people are related within 3 degrees of each other or 5 degrees? I mean, it's just concerning because if you have an ordinance and it's enforceable, then people will obey it. If you have one that's not enforceable, then this person will obey it because they follow the law. They believe in the rule of law and the spirit of the law. This person's not going to do it unless it's going to be enforced. So that's concerning to me. Item number 3 under 6.5.18 talks about gatherings. So if you have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home, that would prohibit you from having more than 6 people to your home. So if there's 6 of us staying in that home and you invite 2 people over for drinks or dinner, you would be in violation of that item, is my reading of it. The issue with regard to liability insurance, I just would say make it more specific. Do you want a certain amount or do you have a threshold that's concerning? Is there a reason for that? And I noticed that in the case law, it did say that the towns could include liability insurance. The biggest concern I have is in R1, the nonconformities and the intensity. You're going to hurt a lot of people. I mean, I know there's at least one person here that is in R1 and they just brought their Airbnb online. They've been renting it long term and they're not going to have the days in the bank in order to rent for more than 30 days out of the entire year. People have made significant investments. I have no qualms with you forbidding this moving forward, but the people that bought for the purpose of short-term rental, to limit them, I just think it's very damaging and it's concerning to me. And I think it does infringe on their property rights. If they would have known that, they would have made the choice maybe not to buy the property. But thank you for your time. And I would encourage you not to vote on this tonight without seriously looking at some of these concerns that I've presented and the other
Thank you.
speakers have.
Anyone else?
Kevin Gabbard. I am that person who, let me just give you a little background. I've been a Highlands resident for 23 years. I love the town of Highlands. I abide by the rules and I respect your rules and I want rules. We don't want loud noises and things like that. And I understand that where you're all coming from and I don't want that either. I have a small cottage just a mile from town and it's just a very bedroom and a half, just 2 guests is all I'm looking for. Just remodeled it, put a lot of money into it this past 4 months. Bought it a couple of years ago, and now I was ready, had a little 2 to 5 year plan, and my plan was going into effect a month ago. And now I hear the news of this without much notice of what was going on. I knew there was some stuff going on in February, but I heard rumors and things like that. So I don't know why the normal rules of law can't really apply here with, you know, if you can limit the number of guests, I'm all for that on all these locations. You know, I understand you don't want 10, 12 guests making noise and things like that. If I can only have, if it's 2 guests, that's all I can have. Mainly all couples. But if you have rules that tell me I can only do that, I would be glad to abide by those. I fixed up the location where I'm at now. It was an eyesore to town. I won't mention where it's at. I fixed it up. I mean, I could put some other junk cars out there and a mile from town and make it look like crap again, but I made it look nice for the for the town of Highlands. So I'm trying to make it look nice. And quiet hours, I'm all for quiet hours. I think we already have a rule for that, don't we? 10 o'clock at night, you have to be quiet. Is that correct? I'm not sure. Is there a quiet time? You don't have to be quiet at all? I don't know. I don't know the law, but I would suspect put a quiet time in there. I'm fine with that. If my tenants are out of line after a certain time, whatever time frame you put on, call the police, call me up, fine me $500, $1,000, whatever you want to fine me for my people being out of line. I'll be glad to pay the fines. But this is my livelihood, my only livelihood I'm doing right now. Okay, I just don't understand what's going on here, but and I don't understand also, maybe you can address my question, answers later, but R1 and R2, how are those defined? I know some people here in R2, and I know they're like less than a mile from town. R1 I'm a mile from town. Why are they R2 and they're going to be under a totally separate rules and I'm have to abide by? And I know we're exactly the same mile, or they're even less mileage from town. I don't understand that point at all, how that could be. I'm farther away from town and they're closer and they have a whole different set of rules. But anyway, I'll quit rambling, but it's very important to my livelihood. And again, I'm all for trying to make the town a nice place, and I've been here 23 years. So appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, I didn't plan on speaking, but I just drove 5 hours, so I'm going to speak. I'm from Charleston. I understand
Would you
ordinance.
state your name, please?
Sorry, Sarah Marion. Yes, and I'll give you a little background of why I love Highlands and why we bought here. I would have brought the map of my family, or excuse me, my husband's family's property. You may have heard of Harris Lake and what they used to own and the magnitude of the property that was their family's. And they just sold too soon. They weren't able to hold on to it. So we have slowly saved, my husband and I, over the years so that we could have a property back in Highlands where he grew up for 54 years. And his family still loves to come and enjoy. His Gammy is buried here. We're going to be buried here. But I'm a working mom with 2 kids. We love our little cottage. We do short-term rent it. We're in R1, but the short-term rentals are what allow me to have a cottage up here. They supplement us paying our bills, putting the money back into the property. We employ people to do our yard, to do our maintenance, to do our renovations. We did a huge overhaul on a house right by the Bascom just last May. And we would not have spent that extra $400,000 on a house and this location if we didn't plan on having the option of short-term renting and keeping it in our family to pass to our children so that there will always be a piece of Highlands in their family. That's really all I wanted to say. I know most of our renters are people that are coming here for weddings and they fall in love with the location of our cottage. And they're like, you know what, I'm coming back with my mother for Christmas if, you know, if your family's not using it. And they're already looking a year out, 2 years out for like 1 to 2 weeks for them to come back with their family and enjoy what we created to enjoy with our family. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Hey guys, Nick McCall, Highlands, North Carolina. All I want to say, I come to this just by myself without any kind of other influence, but everyone on this board, minus one, has been on this board for quite a few years. So you have allowed something to happen this long. So to now come back and act like we got to stop something is a little troubling to me. And I know that I've spoken with everyone on both sides, and there's not one person that's not for regulations. The Save Highlands group is all for regulations, but to try to take something away from people without bringing them to the table is a little irresponsible, in my opinion, respectfully, considering that all of y'all have been on the board for so many years and this has gone on for so many years. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Doan, and I live on Satula Ridge Road and have been a Highlands resident for 16 years. I would just like to say that I'm really relieved to see this because I think the biggest issue here is for us to move forward as a community. And as much as one side would like to have it their way and another side their way, I just don't see how it's going to be possible. So I think that I just have to say, you know, it's a great step, and hopefully that we can achieve the unity and the return to community that we all need so badly here.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Hearing none, let us now move on to the next item on the agenda, and that would be to review and approve the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
Move we approve the agenda as presented. Second.
Second. All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand and signifying by saying aye. Thank you. We have an agenda. The next item, approval of the April 12th special meeting minutes. Do we have any corrections or changes to those minutes?
Move to be approved.
Okay. All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand and saying aye. Thank you. The next one would be the approval of the April 21st regular meeting minutes. Do we have any corrections or clarifications to those minutes?
Move to be approved.
Second.
Second. All right. All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand and signifying by saying aye. Thank you. The next one will be the approval of the April 28th special meeting minutes. Do we have any changes to those meeting minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second. Thank you. All in favor, please raise your hand and indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And then finally, the approval of the May 5th special meeting minutes. Do we have any changes or corrections to those minutes?
Move we approve the minutes of May 5th.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Please raise your hand, all in favor, and signify by saying aye. Thank you. All right. The next item will be the report, starting with the mayor's report. One of the things that I wanted to bring to the board's awareness tonight, I've been in contact with members of the ABC board and Kevin, the manager of the ABC board, over the last several weeks. state legislature passed some new requirements and changes of the rules to the ABC system. And one of the big changes that was instituted by the legislature was the requirement that all the ABC stores would have to now start doing delivery of alcohol to restaurants and other, stores that sell mixed drinks and alcohol. Kevin especially was very concerned about this because it will increase the financial burden that they would have to have. One, someone to deliver the supplies to the different stores, and then also they'd have to acquire a new vehicle. And I know the ABC board is examining this situation. I believe they have now requested or in the process of asking for an exemption, and stores of certain size and locations can do that. But I just wanted to let everyone know that this is something that our ABC store and that board, which we appreciate all their work, will be working with in the coming weeks. And we'll keep you posted on any developments. The other thing is, I wanted to say that we put out an appeal this year for the Town Scholarship Program, asking people just to send in donations. I want to tell you right now, we have $135,000 in new donations, and it's just one donation was for 100,000, and then we had many other donations. And I just want to say, I really appreciate what these generous Highlanders have done. This really makes a tremendous difference with making sure that all of our students have a scholarship to start their advanced education. I also, of course, want to congratulate our graduating seniors who will be moving on after this Saturday's graduation. Then a couple of other things. One is that on this agenda tonight, because we do have the Unified Development Ordinance item, Josh and I, as we developed it, felt like we needed to kind of limit the agenda because of just simply the time that it'll take to go through this review. There are certain things that I'd like for us to look at our next meeting. One would be there are grants now for electric car charging stations. I know I've talked with the folks at the Chamber of Commerce about the possibility of those becoming a part of the parking system here in Highlands. We need to kind of address that. We have talked about it a number of years ago and decided not to do it, but things do change, and that might be one of the changes we need to address. And then finally, I've passed on to our town manager. I've written a kind of a rough draft of some ordinances that I'd like to see us address, things like grubbing on construction sites and other ordinances that I think we need to address sooner than later. And I know that the staff will be working on actually developing some language and getting that to the Public Works Committee or Public Safety Committee, whatever is appropriate, to receive recommendations and feedback on some of those initiatives. So that's all I have in the mayor's report. So now I'll turn it over to, do we have any committee or commissioners that would like to report tonight?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to thank Jay. I got your 5 reams of comments on the red line version of the contract. I went through them Sunday, and then I got the next version Monday. And I talked to the mayor. I've got just a very few questions, and he asked me to put them in writing. Maybe we can all talk in a week or two. It shouldn't take 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay. Any other reports? Next report would be our town manager, Josh Ward.
Let everybody know that we've been notified by the North Carolina Department of Transportation that the Gorge Road will be closed the week of June 6th. Be closed Monday through Friday. The alternate routes will be Buck Creek Road and 106. They're going to be, any of you have traveled up and down the mountain, you'll see at the bottom of the gorge, they had a failure there. I think a Jeep went off and was held by the guardrail. They're going to come in and actually secure the bank there and do some other work while they've got the road closed. So just want to let everybody know that that's the week of June 6th. Also, Town Hall will be closed Monday, May 30th for Memorial Day.
Okay, thank you, Josh. All right, item 7, the consent agenda. Do we have any questions about the consent agenda? Do I have a motion to approve? And a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand and signify it by saying aye. Thank you. All right. Our next item would be the Unified Development Ordinance Amendment, proposed short-term rental ordinance. Let me just say that I know that this is an issue that we have been working on for a number of months. It's a contentious issue. I know there are different parties and people have different views, and it's, in my opinion, time that we, as a board, start to address this issue. As one person told me recently, make a decision so people will actually know where we're headed on addressing the short-term rental issue. We had a closed session before this meeting where we met with attorneys who had rendered a second opinion. Mr. Craig Justice had rendered the first opinion. And then we had this afternoon a closed session meeting with Chad Isick and Bob Hagerman, and answers were given concerning certain legal aspects of the amendment. So that is where we are. And what I would like for us to do is to go through each one of those sections. And if there's any questions, changes, or concerns, then we will address those accordingly. So I am going to pull up my copy. And what I would like for us to do is we go through the sections, not refer to pages, but to sections, and then, subtitles on that. So let me just find mine real quick. Got it. All right, the first page, it starts with Article 2 definitions. Do we have any questions, concerns about the definitions?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move that we send the entire document back to the planning board to review that. We made so many changes since they saw it. I just recommend that we send it back to them to have public hearing and with legal counsel and receive comments from the public.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, can I make just a point of order? What you see on the screen is changes and additions to the ordinance that we already had. So we have many, many more definitions than you see up on the board.
Okay.
These are just changes and additions.
All right.
And elimination.
Any discussion about sending this back to the planning board?
I'll make the motion to send it to the planning board, Mr. Mayor.
I hear that. I don't hear a second,
Okay, thank you.
but, under the procedures in North Carolina, we can still call for a vote, even if there's not a second, if you'd like to.
There's no second, there's no need to call for.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, any other questions about this section on definitions?
There was no second.
So it did. I know that. Or do you want to withdraw?
I'm not going to withdraw my motion.
Okay, then we will then call for a vote then. Is that correct? Okay. All in favor of Mr. Haynes' motion, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Raise your hand, thank you. The nays carry. All right. Any other questions about the definitions?
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion that we ask Craig Justice to take this document to the opposing counsel for the Huff lawsuit. And we heard Christy Savali say that a compromise was possible. I just make the motion that we ask Jay and Craig to meet with the opposing counsel and see if there's any compromises possible.
Okay. Mr. Haynes made the motion. Do we have anyone who would like to second that motion? As the clerk has stated, we can still call for a vote regardless whether it's a second or not. And Mr. Haynes, you'd like for us to move forward with the vote, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All in favor of the motion to refer this to Mr. Justice and the Save Highlands attorneys, would you please indicate by raising your hand and saying aye?
Aye.
Okay, one in the affirmative, and then those who would be opposed, will you indicate by raising your hand and saying aye?
Right. Can I just say that we've been doing this for 8 months. We've had lots of public comment. We've had lots of opinions from lawyers. We have looked at, we've had more emails, we've had more phone calls. I don't think that we have not done our due diligence here.
Okay,
Or we have done our due diligence. Not, we have not done our, we have done our due diligence.
okay. The next section would be section 4.7.1 or 4.7 zoning compliance permit. Do we have any comments or questions concerning this section of the changes?
I'm concerned it might be considered registration.
That was certainly considered in our working group, and when we came back with this recommendation, it's because it is zoning. And if you have zoning and you have rules about uses and zoning and those kind of things, and you have to have some way of knowing and letting people know what the rules are and that they are compliant. It doesn't do us any good if we make rules and have no way of being able to tell whether they're complying. So this is just like a special use permit or any other building permit or anything else. This is a compliance permit. So this allows us to know that the rules that the community has decided they want to live by are in fact being, everybody's complying with that. That's all this is. So this is not a registration in that they have to register every year or any of that kind of stuff. This is simply in the light of zoning, how do you figure out if people are complying with the rules that the community has decided they're going to live by? And this is it. This is a compliance permit.
I do have one question under 4.7.10A, fee schedule. Have we determined what a fee would be for this permit?
Well, I think that's probably, we have a lot of other permits, whether it's land disturbance permits, tree permits, impoundment permits, all those kind of things. So it would be in line of whatever it is, but until we actually pass an ordinance that asks for this, I don't know that we would put a number on it right now.
Okay,
Josh.
Josh.
Well, all of our fees are different, so this would need to be specific.
Right.
For short-term rental.
But we haven't passed this yet, so we don't know what it would be, but it would be
So that would follow
in,
if you decide to adopt.
right, exactly. That would follow and that it would be in, in the same kind of thing that all our other fees are. Just a reasonable fee so that pays the time and effort it takes to administer it.
Okay. Any other comments concerning the compliance permit?
Are you on 4.7.10?
Yes, sir.
I'll just say the same comment that I'm concerned it's a registration in violation of the Schroeder versus the city of Wilmington.
And I will just note that I hear what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
There's also been legal advice that this does not constitute registration. Commissioner Patterson said, okay.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one comment. 4.7.10, number 4, number of bedrooms on property intended to be used for occupancy. I wonder if we should not consider currently existing. Some folks, somebody may have 4 bedrooms in the house. They only intend to use 2 bedrooms.
Well, that's what I was talking about during the executive session. There are big houses out there that are being rented right now. Yeah.
Well, this is just simply a number to be filled in of what the current number of bedrooms are in the home, whether it's 1 or 15. We're asking for the number of bedrooms to be used for occupancy. I think it'd be useful to know the number of bedrooms in the home itself.
Makes sense.
Okay.
What about homes that don't have septic permits? Anything before 1975?
But I know what you're saying. I know of a homeowner that locks the master bedroom but rents 2 more. You know, that's common. They don't let people go into their bedroom.
Currently existing.
No, it's not anything that the board thinks needs to happen. I know y'all, the
The
committee
number-
has given it extensive.
The number of bedrooms in a property intended to be used for occupancy.
Very similar.
Yeah, that's,
This is for a short-term rental. A short-term rental typically does not have the owner on property on site. That's a homestay.
Right.
So seems to me it would just be maybe the language that says intended for use for occupancy is just how many bedrooms there are. Is that what you're saying?
either that or why I asked the question at all. Then, assuming the short-term rentals is a whole house. Because this assumes that it's not a whole house.
Yeah, if you're renting the whole, if it's a whole house, short-term rental, you're renting the whole
Asking
house, so you got access to
The
all the
number
bedrooms.
of rooms to be used that are going to be used. To me, that assumes
It's a
that
control
it's the whole house. Or not.
Yeah, but that's what
The whole
I'm
house.
saying. You just write down the number of bedrooms in the house.
Well, in the definition of short-term rentals, it says this term does not include homestays, hotels, motels, or tourist homes. Things that actually have the owner on site.
Well, I'm not saying that the owner has to be there.
So what you're saying is.
Maybe somebody, it's like many homes up here that are rented have owner's closets. Why could you not have an owner's bedroom? I don't know where there are any or not. That is not part of the rental program. Yeah, it's just locked up and when the owners want to come up, they come up, unlock the door and walk into
So,
a room or the bedroom that's theirs. And
but what we're concerned with is how many rooms are going to be occupied in a short-term rental. Right? So why does it matter how many other bedrooms are in?
Okay,
Can I reread this with what I think Commissioner Dotson is requesting? The number of bedrooms on the property currently existing and intended to be used.
It's just two blanks. If it's a as-built 6-bedroom home, and if they're using 3 or 2 or 1 or 5 or all 6, the short-term rental, then just write in that number.
Okay.
So how do you want to change it so that, I mean, you could actually read this as property intended for use of occupancy. So.
Just add another question, number of bedrooms on the property, period.
Well, maybe we don't need to know how many are intended for use of occupancy, just have how many bedrooms.
And,
That's
and that
what
was my other question.
chief
If
was.
if we're assuming that it's a whole house rental, why even ask the question?
Because you need to know for parking, or not parking, but you need to know for occupancy.
Well, then why would we not strike occupancy and say this is the maximum, as the chief just said, maximum number of bedrooms. This is allowable bedrooms on this property.
Yeah, but for every bedroom, you're allowed 2 people plus 2 additional
Right.
people. So you need to know how many bedrooms to know how many people are allowed to stay there.
So that would be the total number of rooms, no matter whether you're renting it or not.
So if there's 4 rooms, 8 people or 10 people could stay.
Right.
So
So we're
it
getting
could be
back to
just
the
the total,
original.
the number of bedrooms on the property, strike intended for use in occupancy. Is that what you want to say?
The board.
Well, no,
Thinks
I-
that's
is that,
legitimate.
is that address what your question is?
But what did the committee, what was the committee's
I don't think we have,
thought process in
remember
coming
that.
up with how many bedrooms?
our thought process was is we needed to know how many bedrooms so we knew what our occupancy limit was. We didn't look at this, the way this is written, it says, so that we weren't distinguishing, because there's a whole house rental, we figured every bedroom in there was for occupancy.
Okay. So then we should just have the number of total bedrooms.
That's fine.
Blank.
Well, and maybe in the dwelling unit rather than on the property. Probably in the dwelling unit.
Multiple units on property.
Yeah. I think that's probably why they didn't put the intended for use of occupancy, so that you include the garage that you might turn into a apartment.
We resolved that? Okay. Any other comments on this section? Hearing none, why don't we move over to Article 6, and that is the chart that has the overnight accommodations and household living categories. Do we have any questions concerning this first chart?
Some of these definitions were supplied by Craig Justice because he made a distinction between a single-family structure and a single-family use. And so just to be clear, so that it's that was one of the points that he brought up that would be contention is that even though ours said single-family dwelling, that could be the structure itself. And so we put the one that says single-family residential use in there. So you're not only defining the structures that can go in that zone, you're also defining the uses that can go in that zone. And that's what that's intended for.
Okay.
Pardon? But one are you on? now?
that first chart,
It just says household living.
short-term limit, it is
Oh, for some
limited.
reason mine's not on. Oh, here it is. Yeah, I think one of the things that we decided was a board decision, was whether we should or should not limit short-term rentals in R2, for a number of reasons. We don't know how many are out there. The future of Highlands should not be as a short-term rental venue. I think we need to protect what we have in the way of neighborhoods, in the way of residents who contribute to our town in so many different ways, like whatever it is, thousands of dollars that have just been contributed by our residents to our scholarship fund. I doubt many short-term rental people who came in for 3 to 5 days at a wedding have actually contributed to that. So those are the people that we actually need to make sure that we, and so why are you giving me a funny eye?
I felt lazy.
Okay. As if you didn't understand what I was saying. And so I think that was one of the things that we were leaving to the board to discuss, is whether R1 and R2 would be included in this, or just R1. And also before we had originally eliminated them or not allowed them in B4, and B4 might be a zone that would allow them, which is again kind of commercial to residential. So it's an area that is already more active, more intense, more stuff going on, more in tune to what a short-term rental might be.
My
So,
res-
You want them in B4?
You're saying.
Yeah.
Before.
Yeah.
I agree, because it's the.
I agree too.
It's the least regulated of anything that
Right.
we've got.
Right.
So why not have this?
So they would be in that limited category, because that means limited just means that L just means that they're not given carte blanche and still have to adhere to the
Right.
provisions of for short-term rental.
Mhm.
So what about R2? R2 was the other one that we decided it was a board decision.
I've gotten feedback from folks in R2 that if you don't treat that like you are going to do with R1, with grandfathering of it, people that are already doing it,
Which
then you almost guarantee that there's a transition to almost total short-term rental in R2. And if you were to not allow it, but grandfather, all the people that are now doing it in R2 could continue. It would just be not allowing a rapid expansion of that. Short-term rentals in that zone. So that's something that's some folks have pointed out to me, and I do live in R2.
So you want to put an X in that? What's the? Yes, no?
I don't want to talk about what we talked about in executive session, but I think we have to allow them in an area and in a residential area, or the whole thing, you go.
But I think R2 should have the same protections as R1.
My only comment about R2 is that historically, we have allowed tourist homes in R2. Not that there are any anymore, but I think the perception, certainly among real estate agents, is that R2 historically has been rental available. I don't know that maybe some thought in the future, some planning, thought process about how to handle R2.
I see what you're saying. I think the argument for the comment that the mayor made, that puts inordinate pressure on that to basically be on. I mean, we don't know how many are out there because there's no public records that can tell us that. Because the occupancy taxes not by specific property. So it's hard to say what that would turn into. Maybe there's not many there. There are a lot of municipalities actually put a percentage number on things. If we don't put something limiting on there, then that entirely becomes short-term rentals. And for me anyway, short-term rentals are not conducive to who Highlands is. Rentals may be fine, but short-term rentals that are those weekend type turnover, destination, venue type things is not what we are. We're going to lose what we are if we don't somehow. If we don't put it in R2, then that's going to explode in R2. And regardless of what we've done in R1, R2 will drag the rest of Highlands down with it, honestly.
Well, Amy, I think we have to take some ownership of this problem. You know, the town amended the UDO in 2012 to allow this. The regulations aren't clear.
This is a problem everywhere, though. This isn't a Highlands issue like some people would make it out to be. This is everywhere in the country.
That's right. The staff,
We can't anticipate everything, and I don't know that anybody anticipated the explosion of short-term rentals.
Nobody saw it coming.
Basically nationwide, worldwide, whatever. So yes, we should have done this a few years ago, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do something now.
I just worry that we've told people they can do it.
And guess
the
what?
people
They
that are
can't.
doing it can still
Right.
do it.
Except that if you put an X there, you
Pardon?
preclude, rapid expansion. But people that are doing it now can continue to do it.
Oh, they do that.
I think R2 needs the same
Well,
protection, yes.
Yeah, we're gonna have to vote. What I think we need to do is to take a vote on this, and I would request that somebody makes a motion on R2 and B4, because we've talked about changing that from what's on the chart now.
What is it now?
Can we separate the two?
We can do that. We can do that.
So
That's
I'll
good.
make a motion that the short-term rentals are allowed in before.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you. All right, now to R2.
I'll make a motion that we do not allow short-term rentals in R2.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
I think we're making a big mistake.
Okay.
They would be
They'll be grandfathered.
required to comply with what's existing.
Yeah.
Yes,
Same restrictions R1 would.
Non-conforming
Right.
uses, right?
Yeah, not just flat out.
No.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor in a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please, if in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed. Mr. Haynes opposed. Thank you. All right, let's move to the next chart. And that is on household living. Do we have any questions or concerns about this chart? Hearing none, shall we now move to commercial uses, short-term rentals? That is section 615.18, short-term rentals. Do we have any questions about this section? I do have one, and maybe the law enforcement could answer this. Under A4, we have vehicles parked in public right of way as to violate the town street. Or parking ordinances are subjected to towing at the vehicle's owner's expense. Is there any ticketing provision for that type of violation? Is there any ticketing option? I see that it says
It's
it will-
public right of way, chief, not
Public
road of way.
is that because of a residential zone?
I think, we have people parking in the right of way, public right of way all the time, because in certain areas, that's the only place they have to park because of our topography. So I don't think it is necessarily for parking in the right of way. It's so as to violate the town street and parking ordinances, which means you can't park in a right of way in front of somebody else's house. You have to park in front of the house that you're going to bed in, you're residing in. And you can't park such that part of the vehicle's actually in the travel lane of any of our roads. But I don't think it should not, it's not intended to be saying that vehicles parked in the public right of way are not allowed. It's a vehicle parked in the public right of way so as to violate the town street and parking ordinance are subject to towing. Now, maybe it's not really subject to towing if it's a 7-day waiting period. Or the right of way. Travel portion can be towed. Well, that's why we're traffic. So it's in the right lane. Yes, we can go. Okay. Because in number, the top of number 4 talks about occupants or guests of short-term rental should not park vehicles on property other than within the parking areas designated on the application form. Basically, that means that they have to park on the property of the rental house.
Correct.
Okay. They can't, right. And so that takes care of that. It's the obstructing the roads, the flow of traffic, right? Regardless of whether it's a private road or a public road, right? Two more. So PVA is a public vehicle area. So it's not a driveway, it's a. After a 7-day period or immediately? Okay. Okay. So does this say what we wanted to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, what about item A2? The three,
Wait, what? A2?
6.5.18A2, right?
yep, that's it.
I had a question. I went home during the break. I passed the short-term rental with 4 bedrooms, 2 minivans, 2 couples, tons of kids. I couldn't even count them. So 2 per bedroom would be 8, right? We don't know how many people brought their friends or not. As long as nobody complains, the chief's not going there, right? This is gonna be hard. It's not impossible.
I'm not sure what you're saying is gonna be hard.
We don't, well, they're over 8 people there. 2 minivans full of kids, 2 couples. We allow 8 people there. We don't know how many of the kids are friends and not related. I think it's gonna be very difficult to enforce, but chief's not going there anyway unless somebody complains.
Right, and part of this is in fact to eliminate the party house, the people who have,
Right,
10 groomsmen or
right.
12 bridesmaids or 6 bridesmaids that are there. And I don't say that they're wrong to party, but they can't party in our neighborhood where people don't expect to have a party next to them every weekend. So it's the party house that this is aimed to getting.
I understand that, but there could be, let's say, 3 couples in a bedroom area and they're not causing a disturbance. I don't know
Right,
why
unless
we
they're
want to
coming,
have a prohibition about that.
we're not Nazis and we're not going and knocking on people's
Yeah, I mean,
doors and saying, how many people are related in here? What we're doing is we're allowing a tool that would say, if you're disruptive and then you come and you find that there's 8 people there in the house, even though there's 8 is allowed, but they're not related, so they're basically there as a party house, but that is not allowed. And those are the kind of things that we hold the renter accountable for. Some things, we can't really hold the renter accountable for somebody. I don't care how many times you tell them somebody's not going to put their garbage out right, okay? The rentor can be held accountable for renting to, if the regulation is they're not allowed to do these party houses or events, they're families, if people want to come on vacation, those kind of things, that's fine, but we're not going to have a party house. And that's the only way we could figure out how to get to the party houses relatedness. And if you have 2 families and they have 2 kids apiece but they don't disturb the peace, they just act like a normal family, nobody's going to report them. It's not going to be a problem. Nobody's going to come and knock on the door and say, all these kids belong to you.
Moving over to the next page of this section, 615.18. Number 7, shall maintain general liability insurance on the property which covers short-term rental use and guests. Any comments about that? I know one of our speakers made reference to that. My feeling was that this is something that, verification would be hard to do, but it does cover the town if someone is doing this and not providing liability insurance. They know that they're supposed to.
Yeah.
Right, we can't tell them how much liability insurance they need, but we have told them that they should have it. So essentially, that's exactly what it is. It's covering the town from saying, well, you didn't even tell me they had to have liability insurance. I assumed as a renter that they would, and now I find out that they don't. And so why didn't the town have that in their regulation? So we put it in the regulation.
Okay.
Is that something that the attorneys had any comment on?
Attorney,
They were the ones that put it in there, I think.
no, the attorneys are the ones that asked me why we wanted it in there, and that's exactly the definition. They said, oh yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense.
Well, it seems to me that it would be a civil problem. If somebody gets hurt on the property, it's not the town's responsibility. Jay, if you want to give your 2 cents worth, it would seem to me to be a civil issue between the tenant and the landlord, and we would have no dog in the fight.
I think the thought behind this was that some town employee could perhaps get hurt on the property, like say they were picking up trash, or they were answering a call, or, you know, and got injured on the job while they're there. This was just to have more protection for them. That was the general thrust of the conversation that we had.
For town employees.
Yeah,
Town employees are covered on that.
Yeah, but that's not justification to me to require somebody to have liability insurance, general liability insurance on the property, which covers short-term use and guests. If I'm renting an Airbnb and I fall off the porch, fall through the handrail that's rotted off the porch, then that's a situation between myself and the landlord. And I don't see how in God's green earth you're gonna be able to bring the municipality into the.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there, Buzz.
I think the municipality would have automatically been brought in, because when people sue people, they name everybody that they can possibly think of that might be responsible. So this is as I said, this is to cover the town that says, as a government, we are trying to protect citizens, visitors and residents alike. And so we're saying, y'all should have liability insurance, because we don't want our visitors to come in here and get hurt and then have to, fight.
Well, but if we're requiring them to have it, then I think the next step in a courtroom, an attorney is going to say, you required them to have it. They bought $1,000. Why didn't you require enough that would cover the damage to my client?
Jay, what do you think about that?
To tell you the truth, I'm indifferent about this particular clause. I mean, I don't think that it has to be in there. It doesn't hurt for it to be in there. I mean, if they have general liability insurance, it's not going to cost them much at all for the premium. So I don't see that it harms it. But again, I'm indifferent about it.
If you don't think there's any liability there as far as the town is concerned, by not stating a threshold limit or a baseline of coverage, then I'm fine. I'm just thinking, if the town requires the landlord to maintain insurance, thinking from a courtroom scenario, if I'm an attorney, I would say, sure, that's great. Why didn't you require them to keep enough insurance as you were doing it? Why didn't you say you've got to have $1 million worth,
Well, you could put
500,000 worth?
You could put that in there.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I don't think we need to go that.
And then I think that becomes onerous to require, for the town to require a landlord to buy insurance. I think we should,
I agree. I think it should be scratched the more I think about it.
well, I think at best, the town should maybe put something in our disclosures or our paperwork to landlords that we highly encourage general liability insurance that would cover.
See, I wouldn't even say that.
You just think we should
Well,
I would
scratch it?
scratch it.
Then I'd say scratch it.
All right. Can we have a consensus on that, or do we need to vote on that?
I'm fine with it. I'm trying to look out for
Can't
everybody.
fix stupid. Yeah,
But
that's true.
I can't tell you how much liability you should have if you're on a rock face and or if you're by the lake or if you're in the middle of a meadow.
Okay.
Well, but what you're saying is if you're in a rock face inside the town, inside the city limits, then you should have had insurance.
Do you want to vote on this, Mayor, or do you want to?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
I think we have.
If y'all,
consensus
everybody else
here.
says
Are you
scratch it,
okay with it?
I'm not,
Yeah, scratch it. yeah.
Commissioner
adamant
Taylor,
about this being.
we will scratch that. Okay. One thing before we go, on item 10, exterior signage allowed in accordance with section 1.3 or whatever. Temporary signs, I know some folks have been saying, well, we should address the idea of having short-term rental signs, like a real estate sign. And our legal opinion is that you can't limit that. If you're gonna do for sale signs and or for rent signs, you can't distinguish between the links.
It's a real estate.
Yeah, okay. Any other things on this section before we go to the next section, which would be section 7?
Are we going to say on number 10 that the signage it's also has to fall under the same jurisdiction or the same ordinance as the real estate signs?
Well, that's why
It
the
does.
reference is
Yeah, I
on
think
it.
That's what-
Yeah.
That's what it
That's why it
does.
says rent.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's the real
Exterior
estate
signs,
ordinance.
temporary signs.
okay,
allowed
so it's
by
got to be 10 feet off where it surfaces the road. and that sort of
And
thing.
then
Okay.
certain size. and-
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
it already says for rent signs, since it's your rentals. That's what it's for.
Okay, non-conformities, Article 7. And that would be section 7.11 purpose. And then limitations, 7.2. Do we have any concerns about that? I see the word intensification there. If anyone wants to
This is the word
discuss it.
what?
Intensification.
I'm more worried about eventual elimination.
Well, that's verbiage that actually comes from your land use law book, from case law, and the sense that they want everybody within a zone to be governed by the same rules. And so non-conforming uses are allowed because they were legal prior to an ordinance change, or they were established prior to an ordinance change. And so you allow them, but the entire zone should come under the same rules. And so that actually comes from this state, the book. Because if you believe that R1 shouldn't have short-term rentals, then there's nothing wrong with saying that if they want to stay established forever and ever and ever, they can stay established forever and ever and ever. But you can't get rid of them, say, I'm not going to do it for 5 years and then get it back. And that's what that's for.
Shall we move on to section 7.21.1, limitations on non-conforming uses?
Gives them an opportunity to make a mistake.
You know,
It's not.
we heard, Jay, we heard the young man talk about he's just finishing his rental and he hasn't rented it one day yet. We just heard the individual talk about he's finishing a building and he's getting ready to rent it and he doesn't have a history. But he's made the investment and he's ready to go, and it seems to be a hardship.
That may be a common law vested rights case.
Or not. Yes.
That's to get the special or the use permit, right?
Documenting the use.
What's that?
Yeah, you could, I think you could just put, to make it consistent, put the "and" there, but you need, it's a separate statement, but you gotta have them all anyway.
Yeah.
There's no "or" in there.
Yeah.
But to make it consistent, put the comma and put an "and" after the May 19th, 2022.
A comma there.
A comma and the "and," so that, and,
Right there.
she
Talking
said,
about number two.
she said that, so it's very clear that you have to have all three.
Okay. Any other comments on this section? There have been some questions asked about this renewal report, or this report rather, filing that report. The property owner fails to provide an annual report by December 31st in 3 years or more years, or the annual report reveals that the property owner has failed to comply with the non-conforming use standards set forth in this section. The property owner's non-conforming use permit shall be revoked and the non-conforming use shall cease. Why, the question I've been asked, why is it 3 years? How was that determined?
What was the question there?
Under this section E,
Yeah, I just didn't hear what you said at the end. You've been asked what now?
why is it failure to provide that reporting information over a 3-year period triggers loss of that non-conforming use permit? Why was it 3 years instead of?
Well, I think the thought was this, that the town could ask for the, if they didn't receive the report, the town could ask for the report anytime. But if, you know, they go on for 15 years and they're doing fine and there's no problem, and, you know, if you make a mistake over the course of the 15 years 3 times, you know, you just forget to do it, or the manager doesn't do it, it gives them a little leeway. In other words, we don't want somebody thumbing their noses at the ordinance saying, well, I'm just not going to do the report. Okay, so they're not going to have any idea whether I'm complying or not. But at the same time, just to give them a little bit of not being so strict that somebody can't simply forget to do it. But if they're consistently do it, then the feeling is they're consistently doing it because they're hiding something. And that's what the 3 years was for.
It's entirely possible somebody would pass and forget to do it, and
Right.
take a year or two.
Right.
Right.
You know, and so we're not trying to be, you know, we're not trying to look for every loophole to kick them out. We're trying to be reasonable in the sense that, we can ask for it at any time, and they can say, oh, I forgot to do it and get it in, or whatever. But the only way we are able to assess whether the non-conforming use or even the short-term rental standards are being done is if they give us a report that allows us to see. And that's why it has to be a public, Yeah.
So the way this is written, it seems to me that reports are only mandatory every 3 years.
No,
That's what I was.
But based on this,
no, 3 times in your lifetime, 3 times in your lifetime of the non-conforming use.
That's what I kind of read that.
what does it say? You got 3 strikes.
Let me see where it says it. I'm trying to find it.
Example 2.1E.
Fails to produce an annual report by December 31st in 3 or more years. And or the annual report reveals that the property owner has failed to comply, then the non-conforming use permission. It's no longer a non-conforming use, it's an illegal use.
Yeah, but it still reads to me like every 3 years
Okay,
on the anniversary date or on December.
it's called an
3
annual
more years
report.
over the.
Yeah, but
Over the duration of
Annual report.
I understand that, but you're giving them 3 years to file that annual report.
Okay, that's not the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
That's the way you're reading it.
That's the way I'm reading it.
That's where I read.
It's if a property owner fails to provide an annual report by December 31st in 3 or more years, or the annual report reveals.
So what would you change? What do you,
3 more years over.
what do you suggest to
If a
change?
property owner fails to provide an annual report by December, fails more than twice. Something, something dumb like that.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's better verbiage than that, but
You drop it 2 years then,
No.
or twice.
3 more years over. 2 more years over.
It doesn't say anything about consecutive years or anything like that. It's just 3 years, period.
That's what I was like, over the.
Of course, of the non-conforming use.
but then you file it
And then-
last day of the 3 years, and then you got another 3 years.
No, because then you're 4 years that you haven't filed.
You don't just file it 3 times. Let me read it again. Property owner
Failure to file.
And
Failed to provide the annual report in 3 or more years.
Yeah, that's like saying, no.
Or 3.
Yeah. Okay, so you're saying
But
they got,
and
I think the verbiage ought to be that.
yes.
I understand.
What do you want to say?
3 more years over.
Yeah, I think you ought to put in a whole nother sentence, saying 3 strikes you're out. If a property owner fails to provide an annual report by December 31st, or the annual report, and just strike the 3 or more years and save that for another. If a property owner fails to provide an annual report by December 31st, or the annual report reveals the property owner failed to comply, so on and so forth. And then,
Well, I don't know, why does it have to be three? I mean, I would think that generating some sort of report would be pretty easy, just like anybody who operates a business. That, I mean, why do you get
Well,
3 strikes? I mean, it just seems like it'd be an easy thing to turn in.
Well, right, and that the 3 strikes is because that demonstrates a consistent disregard for our ordinance. And a 1 year is probably not demonstrating over the
Yeah.
course of 5 years, it's probably not demonstrating a consistent disregard of our ordinance. 3 years gives you enough time to realize, you know, if you're going to do it for 3 years, then you're totally disregarding our ordinance. You've decided you are not going to comply. I mean, we can ask for it anytime. If we find out that it hasn't been filed, we can ask for it. Yeah. Because, you know, you may file it every other year, and every other year, you file it only on the good years when you're compliant. And then on the years you're not compliant, you decide not to file.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to give you 3 of those, but after the 3rd one, or 2 of those, after the 3rd one, you're out.
Yeah.
Because you're consistently not complying with the ordinance. That's kind of the thought process behind it.
So does there need to be any editing or changing to this?
yeah, I think we need to have some kind of verbiage saying failure to submit report annually. Jay?
I understand. I know what it's trying to say. I think Amy's exactly right.
I'm stumbling on how to verbalize the failure to submit the report
Yeah.
3 times. I think there's a lot of possibilities. I mean, in real estate, we have a lot of closings on December the 31st because people are trying to buy houses or get rid of houses in a certain year. The new owner, the old owner may say, let that be the new owner's problem. The new owner may not know about it. So, I mean, I would certainly anticipate failures
Well, I don't
in
think,
submission.
right, and I don't think anybody's holding you to the December 31st if you don't do it and we come up to January
Yeah,
10th
no.
and we ask and you get it in, it's like, okay, you're doing it.
Yeah.
All we're trying to say is, are you in fact complying with the ordinance? And if you're complying with the ordinance, so you're a week late, I'm not really worried about that. But I don't want you thumbing the nose at our ordinance and just saying, well, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that.
So why not something like 3 failures to submit report annually causes permit to be revoked?
That's basically what it says.
But this is the first time we told the legal provider.
No, the first sentence tells me that. Find out later. What failure to provide is basically saying that the property owner fails to provide.
Okay, so
I'm not familiar.
what would be the edit then? I think both is working on it.
Yeah, just strike everything up to to fail and turn fail into failure. Failure to provide an annual report by December 31st, 3 more years, annual report reveals the property owner has failed to comply. So on and so forth.
That's pretty secure.
Okay, that's easy.
Would you say that again, please?
Let's see, that'll be the second sentence of E,
Correct?
starting with if, strike if a property owner, and start with failure, change fail to failure to provide an annual report by December the 31st in 3 or more years. Or the annual report reveals the property owner's failed, and so on and so forth. From there on, it's
So,
the same verbiage.
Okay,
The only thing we're doing is change fail to failure.
okay. Everyone agree to that?
thinking you do the same way it was. That's good.
We have a second edit. Okay. All right, the next one. Section F, non-conforming short-term rentals. I believe that there's some concern and discussion about this issue of intensification requirements and how can you determine that and regulate that. So I would entertain anyone to express their ideas about this.
So the determination is from the annual
Yeah,
report.
the annual reports would tell you if it's been.
I'm right here. Non-conforming term
Yes,
is
sir.
right underneath that,
Right.
directly underneath it. And then it keeps going.
I think the term application is problematic again.
Anyone?
We agreed that we were going to have a semicolon and an after 2 I's.
Yep. You Did that. Any other comments?
Mark, what was your,
We were just talking about the word intensification, where it was located. That's all.
I thought you were talking about application.
Oh, I just worry that application could be construed as registration. We talked about that several times.
Well, we could certainly strike the, as part of an application out of it, shall submit to the planning development director the following for a non-conforming use permit. Strike. That's part of it.
Well, it says application again below there too.
Yeah.
Well, we have applications for lots of things. You have to apply to get a permit. So not using the word application is going to make it much more,
It's just whether or not it's registration under the Schroeder
it's an
case.
application.
Zoning.
Yeah, not registration.
It's an application
Yeah.
for a compliance permit. Right, I'll look through it and give all the.
Any other items under question? That brings us to the 15th page with the adopted date. And that ends the review. Any comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor, I'm afraid we're being so restrictive that we're going to invite a lawsuit. There'll be a stay. We end up paying everybody's attorney fees and it's going to be real expensive. And I worry about that a lot.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, I may make a comment on expense. Somebody gave us an estimate of $200,000. We pay $200,000 every year to keep the pool open. So if you're talking about the future of Highlands and what we want Highlands to be and the protection of the character of Highlands, the character of our neighborhoods, the livelihood of all of our organizations in Highlands, I think, I don't want a lawsuit, but I think some things are worth defending. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? Open to a motion?
Yeah, I'll move to, that we approve the changes to the UDO as presented and with changes noted.
Would you also?
What's the PDA?
Public vehicle access. Okay.
Thank you. You were making the motion, Brian.
Yeah, I made a motion that we accept the.
Would you also include?
Yeah, and the consistency, and also the consistency statement with the land use plan.
I'll second the motion.
Second.
Yeah. we can always change.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, let me call the question. All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand and signifying by saying aye. And opposed. We have 4 for and 1 opposed. Thank you very much.
I realize that nobody in this room is happy with what we've done, but we have to move forward somehow. We've not made anybody completely happy. We're completely mad, hopefully.
Okay. Our next item on the agenda would be the private road maintenance discussion, and I know Mr. Haynes has expressed that concern, so.
It's nearly 9 o'clock. You said the staff's working on something to review for the attorney,
Yeah.
and we can look forward to reviewing their draft.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Item number 10. Fiscal year 2022 and 23 budget presentation. Josh Ward.
Mayor Taylor and the Town Board of Commissioners, I'm pleased to present the fiscal year 2022-23 budget for your review and consideration. As required by the general statutes of North Carolina, the local government budget and fiscal control act, the revenues and expenditures presented within this budget are balanced. In order to present a balanced budget, it was necessary to appropriate $2,236,219.86 from undesignated general fund balance, $2,647,041.89 from the water fund balance, $1,358,962 from the sewer fund balance, and $213,750 from the sanitation fund balance. These fund balance appropriations were used to offset capital project deficits and debt service within several departments. All funds are self-supporting and require no fund balance appropriations to operate, with the exception of the sanitation department, where there is a $78,750 shortfall. The current general fund balance is approximately $4.4 million. The current general fund reserve is approximately $4.9 million. The current electric reserve fund is approximately 5.5 million. As presented, the overall fiscal year 2022-23 budget has revenues and expenditures totaling $28,282,743. The ad valorem property tax rate remains at 15.65 cents per $100 valuation. The tax rate does include a cent-and-a-half earmark for street paving projects, which is scheduled to sunset June 30th of 2023. The valuations are determined by the Macon and Jackson County tax departments. This rate is based on an approximate value of $1,856,000,000 and an estimated collection rate of 98%. The Highlands Volunteer Fire Department tax rate remains 3 cents per $100 valuation. The current town of Highlands charges for water, sewer, electric, and sanitation services remains unchanged. The current town of Highlands fees for recreational uses of fitness center, swimming pool, water aerobics, pool with fitness, and pickleball are increased. The local option sales tax distribution is projected to remain strong. The proposed budget includes a 6% cost of living adjustment for employees. The proposed budget includes a 4% increase in employee health insurance premiums with Blue Cross and Blue Shield North Carolina. Capital expenditures included in the budget total $6,328,304, some of which are carryover from the fiscal year 2021-22 due to supply chain shortages. Total expenditures for all funds are split between the individual funds as follows. General fund, $7,548,018.11. General fund capital projects fund, $2,560,887. Scholarship fund, $59,000. Fire department fund, $1,172,704. Fireman's relief fund, $20,075. Cemetery fund, $63,500. Water enterprise fund, $4,287,046.89. Sewer enterprise fund, $2,084,112. Capital projects fund, $3,392,850. Sanitation enterprise fund, $953,750. Electric enterprise fund, $6,140,800. Total expenditures, $28,282,743. Total expenditures for the fiscal year 2022-23 general fund balance is $7,548,018.11. These funds are split between the individual departments and funds as follows. Governing body, $31,000. Administration, $1,677,668.11. Planning and zoning, $100,950. MISGIS, $569,400. MISGIS fiber, $0. Police department, $1,800,500. Street department, $2,130,100. Public buildings, $102,700. Parks and recreation, $737,550. Recreation pool, $348,850. Recreation ice rink, $49,300. Total expenditures, $7,548,018.11. The town of Highlands operates the following enterprise funds: water, sewer, sanitation, and electric. The total expenditures for the fiscal year 2022-23 water enterprise fund is $4,287,046.89. The total capital for the water enterprise fund is $2,062,000, including department capital items as well as Moorwood water line improvement project, the water treatment plant high service replacement pump project, the water meter replacement project, and the Gibson Street water line installation reflected within the capital projects fund. The current town of Highlands water rates remain unchanged. The total expenditures for the fiscal year 2022-23 sewer enterprise fund is $2,084,112. The total capital for the sewer enterprise fund is $1,776,000, which includes departmental capital items as well as the Carolina Way sewer line replacement project, the wastewater treatment plant belt press replacement project, the Arnold Road pump station rehab project, all reflected within the capital projects fund. The current town of Highlands sewer rates will remain unchanged. The total expenditures for fiscal year 2022-23 electric enterprise fund is $6,140,800. Total capital for the electric enterprise fund is $310,000, including a new bucket truck and the Gibson Street electric line installation. The current town of Highlands electric rates remains unchanged. Staff will continue to monitor Duke Energy's potential increases in wholesale electric rates due to the high cost of natural gas and other fossil fuels. Total expenditures for fiscal year 2022-23 in the sanitation enterprise fund is $953,750. The enterprise fund will require a $135,000 transfer from the sanitation fund balance to purchase a new compact rear loader truck and $78,750 to cover operations in fiscal year 2022-23. The current town of Highlands minimum charge for residential and commercial trash pickup remains unchanged. With that being said, after 4 consecutive years of operational deficits, I recommend staff and finance committee again study the fee schedule for both residential and commercial pickup to determine the amount of increase required to balance the fund in the future. The fiscal year 2022-23 budget includes the following special revenue funds: general fund, capital projects, fire department, and capital projects. The total expenditure for fiscal year 2022-23 general fund capital projects fund is $2,560,887. The fund includes the loan payment for the fiber construction project and the remaining construction cost and loan payment for the new fire department main station. Total expenditures for fiscal year 2022-23 fire department fund is $1,172,704. The town of, or the Highlands Volunteer Fire Department provides service to the town of Highlands and portions of the unincorporated areas of Macon and Jackson counties. The revenue for the fire department is generated 100% through the fire district ad valorem property tax. The Highlands Fire Department tax will remain at 3 cents per $100 valuation. Total expenditures for fiscal year 2022-23 capital projects fund is $3,392,850 and includes the following fund balance transfers: general fund, $172,181.11. Water fund, $1,854,701.89. Sewer fund, $1,306,967, and electric fund, $59,000. These funds are allocated to pay debt service for Kelsey Hutchinson Founders Park Stormwater Project, which is $15,698. Lake Sequoia Water Intake Project, $20,685, and the Mirror Lake Sewer Project at $56,967. These funds are also allocated to cover the carryover costs from fiscal year 2021-22 construction projects, including the Morewood Road Waterline Improvement Project, $550,000. The Water Treatment Plant High Service Pump Replacement Project, $230,000. The Arnold Road Pump Station Rehab, $350,000. Funds are also allocated for new construction projects, including Gibson Street Water Sewer Electric, $667,000. Carolina Way Sewer Line Replacement, $222,000. Water meter replacement, $380,500. And the wastewater treatment plant belt press replacement, $900,000. Financial outlook: the town of Highlands remains strong. Highlands is a unique, popular mountain getaway in close proximity to several large cities, and many visitors are deciding to relocate to Highlands with permanent and part-time residents. I feel this trend will continue well into the future. The town's undesignated general fund balance remains strong, and with the exception of the sanitation department, all enterprise funds are stable and covering their operating costs. The electric fund continues to provide funding when necessary to offset capital project cost in other departments. Due to the ability to transfer funds from the electric fund balance, the town has been fortunate to keep its long-term debt extremely low. I would like to thank Mayor Taylor and the town board for their guidance and working with staff during the budget development process. I would also like to commend the town department heads for the diligent work they put into the budget in order to ensure sufficient funding in the areas needed. In closing, I look forward to implementing this budget, and I hope that we continue to achieve our priorities and goals of providing quality public services to the community.
Thank you, Josh. Do we have any questions of Josh on the proposed budget?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Josh, and you may not be ready today, but you said you wanted to look at the staff for enforcement after the town adopted the short-term rentals. So maybe we could talk about that at the next meeting. Enforcement staff, you know what I mean? And then I can't tell when the first lease payment starts on Hotwire. It's hard to tell from the agreement. There are certain conditions that had to be met. I don't know if they owe us 1 quarter next year or not, but you were going to check on that. And then the capital plan pushed the treatment of the third train of the treatment plant out a year and beyond what the master plan called for. And you're going to look at that. When we all meet in a week or two, I want to talk about the underground utilities and my concern about making sure all of our underground utilities are in easements. And then, Josh, last thing, I was wondering if there's any way we could use the fire department as the shed for the police department until we come up with a master plan for that property and how we want to develop it. That's it.
With that, I really think we need to move forward with what we have. We have the box truck as well as the RTV that need to be covered. I believe that we've leveled that and created that parking area. So I think that parking area is definitely something that is not going to hurt the cover for equipment for the future.
I was just wondering if it fit in the empty fire station in September or whatever it is. My question.
You know, I'm sure it would. I feel like that this covering, I think it's a minimal cost, 25,000, I think is what we got in there. I think it would be very valuable to have to store things that they need if we do move them over there. But again, I don't know what the board will end up deciding to do with the fire department.
Could that covering be relocated if needed? It's permanent. Any other questions? Or requests? Hearing none, do I have a motion that we set a public hearing concerning the proposed budget for the June town board meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand, signify and say aye. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll have that hearing scheduled for our June meeting. Do we have any other business before I call for a motion to adjourn? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you. Ooh.